All right, I am thrilled to welcome Sarah to the Sasaga podcast. So Sarah, dear, fabulous Sarah, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Helen. Absolutely delighted to be here. I love what you do. So I'm a life coach and an executive coach and a facilitator. And I work with mainly women, but not exclusively women, who want to elevate their lives. My kind of motto is that there are many ways to lead a life. Everybody has stories, and I work with them and to create a work style and a lifestyle that people can be proud of. But I also just love the idea of people having a better experience of life and work. So my background is in biology and psychology from the University of Aston, which we are both alumni of. Yes, University of the Year this year.
Yeah, amazing. That's so great. And what fabulous people coming from that university.
I know, work. And so there's that. And my business, the way that I work is in three areas. So first is science. So I use my kind of biology and scientific and really logical background. And the second is psychology. So I use my psychology background and the psychology of coaching and so on to work with that. I'm a systems coach. I'm a trained systems coach. So I work with systems and reading systems and so on. And then the third one is story, or kind of the luck, the fortune, the way we tell our story, or the things that happen to us along the way. And that's really the kind of the juiciest part of what I do. I have a podcast as well, same as you, Helen. I'm sure next year you'll be getting an invite, where I tell people stories. It's very simple. I'm interested in people's backgrounds, what they want to do in the future, and the story and the way that they tell them and how their stories kind of shaped them and made them who they are, and how you can use that as the fuel to kind of fuel yourself going forward. I work with three different types of clients. So I have private clients who are usually in 1-year programs with me, or 6-month programs. I love working with people long-term. So you can see those really, I know you work with cycles as well, but like you can see the cycles that people work through in those times when they're a bit like, and then the times when it's like, this is so easy, or and also, you know, people's businesses crash and burn. All kinds of things happen along the way. Or so like I work with that. And then I also work in corporate. I've been working in corporate for 15 years. I did a long stint with Microsoft as one of the consultants there. And since 2012 October, I started my own business, and now I work in those two areas. But I also have a third arm to my business, which is like social impact, and I run a clothes swap, but that's on hold at the moment. And that was like the biggest clothes swap. It was like 150 people used to come to. It was so good. We rescued tons and tons and tons of clothing from landfill, and just got together. And I always had speakers come and speak about like their sustainable businesses or conscious consumption. And I'm on the board of directors of Refugees Empowerment International, which is a fantastic organisation supporting projects that are refugee run and refugee directed on the borders of Myanmar, and there's one in Africa and one in Lebanon. I think it's Zambia. Oh my God, I can't remember where that is. Or is it Tanzania? Oh my word, I'm the worst person. I'll have to check that. I was talking about that the weekend because I interviewed the on the west side, on the east coast of Africa, and and that's basically what I do. I just in the business of I just love coaching so much. When I first got introduced to coaching about 12 years ago, it was just that it was the best feeling ever. You know what it's like? It's like, wow, yeah, this is where I feel like I should be. You know,
well let's go into a story about that. Tell us that story of what was it that that had that impact on you when you first encountered coaching.
Yeah there's a backstory to this, I think. So, you know, when I was very young, I wanted to be a doctor, but that didn't happen. So I ended up doing psychology and biology, along with most of the people there were failed medics as well. People who hadn't quite got the grades to get into medical school, but I had got the grades to get in there. And then I also wanted to be a priest. at one point as well, I was raised a Roman Catholic, and I was just like, well, Margaret Thatcher is the Prime Minister and the Queen is the Queen. So it's the only reason why I won't be a priest by the time yeah. So there's that. And so, and then I studied psychology and biology, but it didn't really ring with me. So I went into the hospitality industry. But again, when I was kind of, I was on the graduate training scheme with BAS, but the first couple of years of my stint there was front of house. So I was managing pubs and restaurants, right? Wow. So that also has this kind of, you're holding the space, you're talking to people, you learn about people. Like I learned so much about people during that time. I used to have a saying, every suit has a story. And then, you know, and then I came over here as an English teacher initially, and then did that for 4 years. I was rubbish. So I just ditched that as soon as I knew I was going to be staying here for a long time, went into corporate training. And then during that time, I was introduced to coaching. And it was that like moment where I was like, this is it. This is where that background in hospitality meets the doctor, meets the priest. This is where I want to be. And it's lovely because it touches the psychology, it touches the science, and it's all about story as well, which I love. I love performing too. I have a very performative element to what I do. And I really enjoy that. I can remember saying to my friend Adrienne, who I think you may know as well, Adrienne Gilliver.
Don't know.
No, don't know. Okay. She was my manager years ago, and she said, Sarah, what do you really want to do? Because she could tell I was frustrated where I was. And I said, I want to be like, I don't want to do everything, but I'd like to be like the conductor of an orchestra. I'd like to be the conductor and pulling all the things in and creating this symphony. And I feel like that's where I've landed. Now, that's not for everybody, but that's certainly kind of how I felt. Like I'm not an amazing violinist. I'm not an amazing technician in any of those ways, but I can see a really big picture, pull it all together, and then kind of know enough to bring it all together. And I think that's what's happening very much so in my groups as well, in the groups that I run, and people who are in my programs, who they kind of come together. And I wouldn't say that I orchestrate it, because at this point I just sit back and watch the magic and the story unfold in front of me, of them all being together, as I'm sure you experience too. But I think it's really important that I know myself in that way. I like being front and center. I also need a lot of time to recover, and a lot of time on my own, and a lot of blank space in my calendar. But I know that I'm a little bit of a rebel, so I'd rather be the Simon Rattle than the Lele playing concert pianist, you know.
when you first experienced coaching, was that you were receiving coaching for the first time? And so what was that like?
Two things, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Two things happened at the same time.
Yeah.
So the corporate training company that I worked for, the management was brilliant there. And I just mentioned one of them. They were just so inspiring. And we used to have training sessions every week. And one what they were trying to do was embed more of a coaching culture inside the company, my biggest client at the time. So moving from a kind of more of a training culture to a coaching culture. So we had some training sessions about coaching. Like, so it was like, you know, you've seen those tables where it's like teaching, training, mentoring, coaching, consulting, and they're all, and I was like, this is marvelous. And at the same time, I was a member of Pooh for empowering women in Japan. And I was introduced to a coach, somebody I'm sure you know as well, Anne Good.
Yes.
Yeah. And she was my first ever coach that I invested a chunk of cash in. I didn't have an enormous salary at the time, but I just decided to invest, you know, a couple of $1,000s or something like that. And I just remember being like, this is brilliant. I remember like crying in her, like in her living room. She ran the coaching practice from her living room, and just being like, this is amazing. And she just reflected so many things back to me, because I was trying to kind of, you know, take responsibility for myself. I was in my early 30s, maybe, take responsibility and, you know, not blame people and not get into the drama triangle and not do all these things. But she reflected back to me that actually there were some systemic issues in the system that I was describing. You know, there was some actual dysfunction inherent in that system. It wasn't all on me. And just things like that, where somebody listens really objectively and says, you know, what you're describing to me is this.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's not me. And she's
Right.
like, well, some of it's you, but like, we'll work on that, and we get to know you. And, you know, did my Myers-Briggs, which is a psychometric test, so I knew whether I was an introvert or extrovert, sensing, intuitive, thinking or feeling, and so on.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
That's
And so, you know, and that just really brought me to the door of coaching. And at that point I was like, wait a second, I feel like I've been doing this for years. I can remember when I was at university at the Aston Students Guild, and I would go to the guild nights, and I'd just be sitting down enjoying my pint, and people would just come up to me and start telling me their secrets or asking me for advice and things like that. And I would be like, this is interesting. And I even remember one time that there were people waiting, but there was no reason why that was. I mean, I was unusual at university, to be honest with you, Helen. Aston wasn't the most creative place. It was a more science and business based place, wasn't it? The art school was next door.
Yeah.
But I stood out singularly because of my look as well. I had a very certain sense of style. So there's that kind of, and I said to I asked one of my friends once, like, what am I imagining that people used to tell me their secrets or call me to like talk, or like if something terrible happened, they'd arrive at my door, you know? No, that definitely happened. And I was like, why? Because I was just curious, what do you think? And she said, because you have a warmth and an authority. Now, I'm not saying this, Helen, to show off. I'm saying this because it's really useful to know yourself and to ask friends and people around you the questions of, like, if you have a hunch about something that people keep repeatedly coming to you for or asking you for, very, very different to my husband. It's, you know, it's good to know what that is. So it's like, oh, warmth and authority. If I lead with that, and that, you know, not that I'm kind of looking for people to tell me their secrets or to like divulge their stuff to me or anything like that, but it just means that there's something inherent there that not, you know, there's something inherent there. And I would say that's included in the wish to be a doctor, to be a priest, to run pubs. There's something about being to being a conductor, about kind of being the grand dame, but also when it comes, but also I like people to take ownership of the stuff that they do as well. So coaching is phenomenal in that respect, because I have the tools, the toolkit to do all the questioning, but actually then it's over to you. And, you know, I may be able to sense and intuit certain things, but I'm never right in that respect. I can only make offers. So I don't know if there's anything there that's interesting.
Yeah, totally. Because I want to go to that topic of recognizing your strengths. So, you know, you've worked with so many Japanese women, and a lot of our listeners, people watching the video version of this, a lot of Japanese women, and we welcome everyone. We just happen to have a lot of Japanese women, and I'd like to know your observations about Japanese women and their, you know, how they recognize their strengths.
Well, great question. And first of all, I would say that I think Japanese women are phenomenal. I think they really are. I've got goosebumps as I say that. I really do. And, you know, sometimes things that people say and think, do you even know anybody who's a working Japanese woman? I really do. And so many strengths, so many things I could say. And the one thing that I really note at the moment, the group that I've been working with recently, I have individuals that I work with, and I work with people in C-suite as well. But the group that I'm working with at the moment are kind of like managers, general managers. And when I walk into the room, that's what I see. So I get the list of, you know, who they are and what they do. So I walk into the room as their business partner. That's the way that I approach that. What I noticed was, and this isn't essentially a strength, they don't see themselves how I see them. So when I walk into that room, I see an executive board, if you like, or, you know, an executive, a group of senior leaders of the future. Some of them already kind of in that transition area. What they see is people who lack confidence and need to improve. And I and that's kind of part of, and that's why I like working with people long term as well. So generally speaking, I like to work in journey programs with people. Because journey programs mean like a 3-month, 6-month or 12-month proposition, because then you can really work down, create that psychological safety for people to open up to you. I like to work in groups and coaching one-to-one as well, so that you get that kind of balance and you understand the systems that people are part of as well, not just their own system, but the family system, the ecology that they're part of, or the ecosystem that they're part of. So that's what I know, that there's so many messages from the media, from the people they may be working with, and so on. And also the women who make it to the top here are super phenomenal as well. I don't want to kind of imply that there's some kind of unicorns who are the only people who have access to that kind of stuff. Although, to be fair, most people who get into the C-suite and stuff are, no matter who you are, you know, what your background is, gender-wise, sexuality-wise, you know, financial background-wise, are pretty smart people. Like by the time you get up there, everybody's capable. Yeah. But in the layers prior to that, in corporate work, I would say, is that it's great. What I love to see is that transition from being, I need to improve, to like being, oh, I'm just stepping into this. One of the things I said to one of my clients up front, and she often mentions this as well, she said it was like magic, she said, I always ask for feedback after presentations, and you know, thinking that was the thing to do. And I said, how old are you? She said, I mean, let's say for argument's sake, 45. And I was like, why are you asking for feedback after your presentations? It's like, 25, yeah, 30, you can start stopping that now. You know, it's like, why are you asking? And I said, Joe, here's what I'm going to invite you to do. Just stop doing that. Because that kind of like, am I all right? Did I do all right? And I'll be feeling like that after this podcast, no doubt, because it's a kind of, it's a normal thing for people to feel. But I invited her to do that, and she said it made a massive difference. She just stopped from that day. She was like, oh yeah, it's like, you know, you can take ownership. You know, all you're doing is transferring information to try and get business. That's it. You don't need to ask for, you know, feedback on your performance anymore. Right. It's unnecessary. And she said it was like magic, and people started noticing. So they didn't like it either. So she was just constantly projecting this, I need to improve kind of the energy. And so, you know, message or attitude, when actually what she was waiting to step into, and all it took was a seasoned coach to point it out, was what was actually more useful for that person was that they say, okay, good, right, I can do presentations. What I need to do is just focus on the business and my business goals and my team and that kind of thing. Do you see what I mean? And that actually then shifts, which is one of the kind of core pieces of systems coaching as well, from focus on me to we. And she got feedback from people who really were like, something's changed, what is it? And she said, you know, for a couple of trusted colleagues, she said, I've stopped asking for feedback, and they were like, oh yeah, it's making a massive difference. That's so great. It just makes a difference in her whole attitude and the way she comes across to people. I remember years ago as well, I was talking with a fellow coach, and having this realization that also when people give you feedback, not necessarily asking for feedback, when people give you feedback, you have a choice about how you accept, or, you know, how you respond to that feedback. Because when people are giving feedback, they're often giving it with a certain, you know, from their own perspective, from their own sort of values or whatever it is, and they might not be the same as yours. So it's like, take the feedback with a pinch of salt sometimes. And that's a beautiful thing to say as well, actually, because I think you just described projection there as well. But also, if you ask people for feedback all the time, you're giving them a job.
Right.
And then if you have unsolicited feedback, if somebody gives you feedback, it's as well, it's like when you're crossing that line from kind of manager to general manager level, or from manager to leadership, or from kind of, it's not a thing like that, although it can be. To be effective in this area, you have to let go of an awful lot of nonsense and stuff and bits and pieces that you need down in other areas of working.
Yeah,
you have to, because there's an awful lot more strategic expectation on you up there.
Exactly.
So you know, allowing yourself just to be average or ordinary, or allowing somebody to go, that slide is incorrect, and being like, oh yeah, you're right. Or somebody go, you need to speak out more. Perfect a smile and nod. Take a breath. Thanks. You know, you don't, it doesn't mean anything about you besides that one thing. And sometimes we do need to improve. Sometimes we're poorly behaved. Sometimes we do need to, but it's not an across the board thing. It's not something inherent in us. Exactly. It can be very specific. And that's why I have a job. And that's why, you know, I work with people who are smarter, way more well paid, more strategic than me, because I have those tools to be able to draw out what needs to happen. The same for you, I'm sure, Helen.
Yeah.
And the one quote that I really like was from somebody who I used to follow religiously years ago, not so much now, but I still love this quote, is show up, shine, let it go. And I really like that. And that's kind of like, I am not going to sit mulling over this after we come off this, because I have other work to do in the world, you know. I have other work to do in the world, and all I can do is do my best and be myself and so on, and plan accordingly. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Let it, you know, move on. I mean, my goodness, if we all sat around like really getting into the mistakes that we've made in our life, we'd never get anywhere.
No, we wouldn't get anywhere, Helen, and especially for somebody like me, who's, we were talking about this before, who's kind of got a rebel archetype and, you know, very extroverted, speak to think, and, you know, who has quite a kind of strong presence, and who makes kind of mistakes like that all the time. Even now, as I approach 50, you know, it's like, I can't live in that land. If I've been rude or, you know, inappropriate or something like that, and of course I was on a call this morning with the British Chamber of Commerce, and at one point I went, oh, because I was really tired, and they were like, oh, are you tired? Oh, we'll get off the phone. So I sent them an apology to say I'm really sorry for that, because I just feel like they deserve better than that when I'm on the phone to them. Do you know? And they were like, oh, no, of course. Very British thing as well, but my apologies are sacred. And so once you start to do that, if I just feel like I need to improve across the board and everything, there's something inherently average about me, and I need to, you know, I need to improve everything, and tell me what I need to improve. It's different to being like, show up, shine, let it go. I can show up and be myself and trust trust the experts that I've learned from, trust that I keep my learning up to date, trust that I sharpen the saw, which is one of Stephen Covey's things. Like, then you can tell, oh, I need to do this. Oh, it's that part of my communication. This triggers me. So maybe I actually need to go and speak to a therapist or to a systems coach to work with that, you know. If you want to improve your presentations, because maybe your presentation skills are pretty bad, then join Toastmasters, or do a little presentations course, or sign up with Helen Watt. Yeah, you know, it's like
do something, like decide whether it's something worth spending your time on, and you know, and spending your mental energy on, as well as your time. Correct. I want to go back to something that you said just a moment ago about my apologies are sacred, I think you said. Right. So this one, I can guess what you mean with that. And I think this is worth hearing a little bit more from you about what you mean by that.
This is one of my massive bugbears, but also something I've learned more about this year, which is, this women and a lot of other people who are in kind of, how can 50% of the population be marginalized, but there it is. And other marginalized populations in society are often very apologetic all the time. I'm sorry, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Like, just, it's non-stop apology. And again, it's that sense of, and it can be very charming, actually, in that kind of Hugh Granty kind of, oh, British way. So there's some people, I think it's really quite a charming quirk of theirs. But if we are non-stop apologizing for everything, it's really, it's just a waste of our power. Yes. On the other hand, if you do, like, if you I often say this when I used to deliver presentations, presentation skills, what do you call them, like workshops and still things like that. If the technology fails, I want somebody to be like, okay, that's not working. Okay, let's move on and move on to something else. Yeah. I don't want to be like, oh, sorry, oh, sorry, just, so sorry, sorry. Like, you know, I want to know that I'm in good hands. I don't want to feel like I need to make them feel better or something like that. On the other hand, if I have done something that has created a big problem, so that could be anything from knocking a glass of water over the first person in the audience, then I'm apologizing. Or if I've been late and held up an entire conference, or I missed my plane and then I'm not the speaker who arrives, or, you know, something like that, that's a sacred apology. Yes. That's not really what I'm talking about. But if I've behaved quite badly, or if I've made a mistake, or it could be, this is very, very sacred. If I've been triggered and then said something out of order to somebody, or been unkind or mean, and we all do it when we are behaving out of our, if we go into the science, out of our nervous system reactions. We gossip about somebody. If we say something mean, I said something really mean to my husband yesterday, and he was so upset. And I apologized so very sincerely to him. And that was a super sacred. And I said to him, you're right. You know, you're right. At first I could feel myself getting all defensive and being all. So that's what I mean by sacred apologies, is like, make your apologies really sacred, make them something really strong and I want to say powerful, but really well directed. It does take some humility sometimes, because somebody can really get on your nerves, really make you angry and upset you. And this has happened to me on many an occasion. But, you know, on those occasions where I let it come out sideways, by which I mean when I've been a little aggressive in my responses, I think about it afterwards. I let my shame subside. I let my nervous system go down, and I text and say, I'm sorry about that behavior. Yeah. Shouldn't have done that. Although that may be a conversation we could have in the future if you want to. I shouldn't have done that in front of that person, or I wish I hadn't done it in that way, and I apologize for that. Make it really specific and really focused on the behavior and things like that. I think it's really, really that's what I mean by that. So I'm trying to think there's a woman who wrote a book about apologies. It may be Harriet Lerner. Do you know who it is?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, I think it's Harriet Lerner wrote a whole book about that, about apologies and about apologizing, because there has been a kind of wave of coaching where it's like, stop apologizing, and I would say that as well. But I also think that the reason we stop is so that we use them, and the reason why I say sacred is because we use it sparingly, like a very expensive oil, you know, or a very expensive, like a crown, you know, the Queen doesn't wear a crown all day, every day. She wears it very sparingly. I don't know, that sounds nonsense, but yes.
Well, so it's about it being meaningful. So I often think about the story of the boy who cried wolf. Like if you're apologizing all the time and saying sorry all the time, when the real need to apologize comes, if you've been saying it all the time, people don't take it seriously. Okay. But if you are really selective and you use your apologies sacredly, then when you do apologize, people know that it means something. So this, I was just, when you mentioned this, I was like, yes, because this is also one of the things that I'm really passionate about as well. Yeah. And it's about the self, to me as well, it's about self-worth, because if you're apologizing all the time, yeah, right, it's like, it goes, I'm not good enough thing.
Yeah. And this is brilliant, Helen, because I think that's the real part of that for me, is that it's like when you have to listen to yourself doing that all the time, you're almost apologizing just for existing, just for being in the space, just for taking up space. And it's I don't know if this is true or not, but it keeps just coming into my mouth, is it makes it more difficult for other people to take you seriously. But then I do have a friend who's incredibly successful in her field of work, who apologizes, but it's almost like she apologizes all the time. It's very charming. It's part of her personality, in the same way that, like, the way that I am in world is part of my personality. That's kind of slightly different. So, you know, I can imagine it's more like when we're in a retreat or something like that, and people are in a circle and somebody just tells their story and it spills out, and then they cry a bit or something like that, and then they're like, I'm sorry, I just took up too much space. And it's like, no, but you know, there's reasons why that happens, and that is because maybe in the past they've been in a circle of women and they've been like that. God, here we go. You know, that people have been unkind, so we have to then put the mirror back onto ourselves and look at the shadow and be like, well, what might be the reason for that? And then we have to make sure that we're not ever tearing other people down, or you know, creating the environment where somebody who behaves like that because of something that's happened. Then there's another part of the Venn diagram here, which is a cultural piece, right? So if I'm in a situation with in a situation with a lot of Japanese people around the table, then it might be entirely appropriate for me to say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to kind of take up too much time, and I hope that everybody doesn't mind if I just kind of put my opinion on the table. It's only my opinion. It's not entirely appropriate. Right. However, if I transfer that over to a British kind of entity over here in Japan, where the communication is expected to be like, Sarah, I saw the proposal, it's okay, thanks, person.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm trying to get all kind of ego-kago-y with that, then it's not appropriate. So like reading all those dimensions is really, really important. And I think that's, again, if we come back to Japanese women, is one of their amazing skills is that they are able to adapt to quite a lot of different situations really, really quickly, and hang in there in a system that's really not designed for them to be in corporate, in terms of corporate work. And yeah, I mean, the Japanese women that I work with are absolutely brilliant in that regard and bounce back. Yeah. I've had people who've taken months off work because they've been so kind of overwhelmed with everything, and with a combination of whatever other stuff they decide to do plus coaching, have gone back with like this completely renewed, refreshed attitude, this completely renewed, refreshed way of communicating with their bosses, because, you know, they've been to the worst place they could possibly be and then come back. It's quite an extreme version of events there. And then other Japanese women who are just like really ambitious and have got their eyes on the prize all the time, and have just kind of done what it takes to get there, understand their psychometric profile, understand their personality and their tendencies and their preferences and their personality and the personalities of those people around them. And, you know, we put that against the backdrop of the systems, all the relationship systems that they're part of, and just keep moving forward. And it's so interesting, Helen, isn't it? What a privilege. Like, so I have some clients who are in their 50s who are looking towards like, okay, what do I want to do with the last 5 to 10 years of my working life? You know? And they get really playful and really ambitious. And then the women who are in their 30s, I'm like, take a look at this. What if you brought that kind of playfulness into your current situation?
Yeah, right now at that level.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Totally. Oh, I just want so many women, so many people to hear this message. So we'll definitely making sure we get this out to everyone. I would love to just change the mood a little bit and go into something fun, because we're actually recording this towards the end of 2020, and our listeners and viewers will be hearing and seeing this in early 2021. So I want to start something new. And Sarah, I know you're game for for new and playful things. So I have a list of quick questions of favorite things. So, and you haven't had a chance to even prepare your answers. We just go with spontaneous, what first comes to mind. So, your favorite book, film, or song?
The Wind Up Bird Chronicles by Haruki Murakami.
Okay, thank you. Your favorite thing from favorite thing from the UK?
Humor.
Oh, okay. Well, that I'm going to skip over to one of my other questions. What makes you laugh the most? That's such a good question. And while you're thinking about this, I'll just tell listeners and viewers that I just have this impression of, so many times I've been in a room with Sarah where you just hear this like raucous laugh. It just like goes off. And so I'm like, okay, what is the big trigger for you?
I just
in a good way.
Love banter, like that kind of quick banter where there's no barriers and you're not worrying about what you're saying, and you're able to kind of take the mickey a little bit and to just not take things too seriously. I'm just trying to think about the last time I laughed like what
was the last time I laughed?
My husband makes me laugh so much. I could hear him laughing. I like listening to him laugh. I can't bear Japanese TV comedy by and large. It's just not my bag. It's not my cup of tea. But he loves it, and he laughs until he cries. And listening to him doing that just makes me laugh so much. But I feel like I haven't had too many belly laughs recently, so I need to get some more in the bin.
Get some humor, more humor going. Okay, so who is your favorite Winnie the Pooh character?
I don't know. Eeyore.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah.
You've already told us your favorite quote or saying, so that was a great one. What's your favorite thing to do to relax?
Look out the window and see the sky and take photos of it. Just watching the sky changing. I've been living here for a year. I live by the seaside, and I have just a lovely view out of my window, and it was always my dream to have a light-filled studio and to live by the sea. So I'd say like being at the sea, but that's kind of more of an activity. So for me, it's just sitting really quietly and looking out the window and looking at my plants and looking at nature just changing around me and noticing the sky. When I lived in Tokyo, I just had like a postage stamp I lived on the ground floor. I'd see an amazing sunset and I'd be craning to like just get like that much sunset like in. Whereas here I can just open my window and watch it, and I've got like a 360 and surrounded by hills, and then if it looks amazing, I'll jump on my bike and ride 5 minutes and be at the shore. So that's what really relaxes me. And also the other thing that relaxes me is sitting quietly with my husband downstairs in the mornings. There's a beautiful quote by Johnny Cash where somebody asks him what's his idea of heaven or something like that. And he says, this morning with her drinking coffee, talking about his wife, June. And that just always has been an enormously inspiring quote to me, just very gentle, very regular. And I'd never, ever take those moments for granted when it's just quiet, looking out the window, the curtains are blowing in, And I just noticed, I look up at the sky, we live here, and we're just sitting quietly together.
I love seeing your photos of Zushi. You know, I'm always following you on Instagram, and we'll be linking to everything in the show notes as well, so people can contact you. Just a couple more questions as we start to wrap things up. So one other one that I would love to know is, what advice would you give to yourself 20 years ago?
Just did a visualization this morning about talking to my 20 years in the future self.
Mm-hmm.
It's more interesting. So I don't know. I think it would just be don't start smoking. That's a really, really simple one. A really, really simple one. I mean, I would have missed out on all those delicious cigarettes, but don't start smoking. That's a really, really addictive and really gross habit. But that genuinely, that is a genuine answer. I might say to her, be wilder, but not quite so reckless, I think.
And what does that mean? Being wild and not reckless. What does that mean?
Yeah. Let yourself go more and be more and more like, just don't be so self-conscious. But it's easy for me to say that, but it's something I still get coached around, to be honest with you. I still feel incredibly self-conscious. I tried so hard in my 30s to fit in and have a nice ponytail and wear, Gap suits and things like that, but it felt awful. And also, that's not why people buy my products, for me to try to fit into like a certain mold. And that never fit anyway. Nobody would, that never ever fit me anyway. So I spent my 30s trying to kind of fit into Japanese society. Can you imagine? And and not so much like a 6 foot, like what, like it's blonde now, but like blondie ready haired like woman trying to do that. And so I would say, like, just, it's really hard to say, like, be more and more of yourself, but like be more wild and less reckless. I think I would say that, like, so yeah, just be more. And I think another thing I would say is, the only way I can kind of say this is by an example, which is this. When you move into a house and it's a rental, and you hold off from buying the things you really, really want, because you're saving it for that next move or the next move on. There's something in here about getting the thing you want at the time within your budget, of course, and always go to the edges of that. So something like that as well. Like, don't hold back on the things that you want within your budget. And that might not be what it is. Do you know what else I'd say? Get a coach. That would be don't start smoking, and get a coach ASAP, or get into therapy ASAP, like as soon as possible. Don't waste your time. The other thing is, I'd say to her is, in 4 years' time, you're going to lose your job, and it's going to be incredibly painful. They're going to offer you to transition into corporate. You're going to say no out of pride. Do it. That's another thing I might say as well. But then I wouldn't have had this amazing, trip that I've been on. So there's quite a lot of things in there. I don't know, because I quite like my 20-year-old self. She was cool.
Yeah.
She was mad. She was rad, but she shouldn't have started smoking cigarettes.
And the thing is, it's like, because of who we were in the past and all the crazy things that we did, that brings us to who we are today. Yeah.
And I always think that, Helen, like, everything brought me to my husband, and I like him a great deal. And I feel like that's the kind of the most important piece of me, if you like. So it's like, if I had done that, if I had done this, if I had done the other, I wouldn't have found my way to him. Or maybe I would have, who knows? But like, it sounds terribly romantic, doesn't it? But I I mean, there would have been something else or somebody else, but like, I think less reckless and more wild, more pleasure, more desire, more wildness, more of what I wanted, and less just madness and recklessness and excess.
Right.
Less excess, and don't start smoking cigarettes. Really
okay, we've got that message.
It's going to be really hard to give up.
Well, maybe that might be the title of this.
You'll crave them for the rest of you. I wish I could give you something more philosophical, but it's grim.
You already have with that, and I wanted to just go from we're going to wrap up soon. I actually said to Sarah before we started recording that this episode could go on for about 5 hours probably.
Oh, my podcasts do, and I just leave them as they are because I'm just so fascinated. I'm like, I break every single rule of podcasting. I'm like, I don't really care. I
just want to know about that as well.
I just want to know about that, but this is brilliant as well, to be really, well disciplined.
So let's hear a little bit about what's coming up for you in 2021, and because I know you have your program starting again, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh, I have some really big projects I want to birth in 2021, and I can't do it on my own. So the first thing that I have is I have a 1-year program that I run. It's mainly women, again, that's who I attract, but not exclusively. And so I do have one guy at the moment who just kind of lurks around in the background, like he just must be the guy who knows, he must be the best husband going because he knows so much about us. Anyway, so that's usually about 20 people. We do it's a 1-year coaching program, monthly one-to-one coaching, group coaching. The groups are amazing. So like we have these group calls every month where just magic started weaving itself out. I hardly even have to say anything anymore. We do like monthly content, monthly themes. We have a Facebook group that we share our information with. And from that, I have a really strong desire to become part of that myself in a more rigorous way, and actually to bring some really, really concrete things into being. So I was inspired by my friend Carmela, who works with mothers, to bring something concrete into life. So next year there's going to be some element of that. I'm like, this is just between you and me, Helen.
Okay. Nobody else
will know this
listening at all.
But this is a really bonkers idea that I have, but it keeps coming back, is I want to start a publishing company. And I want to publish people who wouldn't otherwise, and this was inspired by a friend who posted a picture of a dream she'd had. She posted it on Instagram, and it was of this bear with all these crystals growing out of its back, and I was like, what is that? She was like, this is what I had a dream about last night. And I was like, I want to know about this. And she's a really interesting person with Japanese and English heritage, and she's just such a fascinating person. I was like, I want to know more about this. And then I was like, well, what if she can't illustrate it all, but she can tell the story? I've got a friend who's an illustrator. Now, individually, these people are never going to publish a book.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I don't think it's on there yet, but I want to be the person who brings this together. And I think I can do that. I think that's one of the skills that I have, is to bring people together. Don't know what I'm doing, don't know how to do it, but what I feel I want is a group of very, very talented, forward-facing, coaching, what do you call them, veterans. We come together and we create something together, and we hold each other accountable for that. So people who have a book, that book's going to come into being. So some really tangible stuff. And also like that, I want like really great advisors to come in that I know. So, I can talk about finances and things like that, but I am not, to some degree. But like, if I brought my brother-in-law in, who's been working in a bank for 20 years and owns property and has this like really well savvy business, they've got everything laid out in my brother. For the next, I don't know, however many years, everything's mapped. Like, that's so not my skill at all. I'm good at kind of making money and creating the energy around things, and my husband's really good at saving, but they've got this kind of amazing balance. Like, what would he be able to answer for people? That kind of thing. So like, there's something in here about having this sacred circle of very, very also, but then we also have some kind of reach into society as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of tentacles to kind of put out there. So it's not just about this group of elite women publishing books. No. It's different to that. It's about, it's this kind of feeling, and then out. And it's like a next, I want to go there as well, because I can get stuck, and we can all get stuck, right? So I want to go with them. With the group in this respect. So, and also my 1-year program, which is like a 12-month coaching program, which I love. It's called February is the New January, FNJ. That's amazing. I usually get somebody to come in and do headshots for all my clients, and I select a really specific coach. So the first 2 years ago, I had a declutter coach. I purchased her services because 1, I wanted to elevate that business, and 2, I'd used her stuff. And then 3, I think people could do with a declutter coach, because it's really hard to get that, that's one of those things that can hold you back in so many areas of your life. She's brilliant. And then, of course, people then have the 3 hours that I purchased from her and then purchase more. So it's just putting more stuff back in, right? So usually have headshots, that, and then what was the other thing? Oh, my assistant. I purchased 3 hours for everybody with my assistant, because people will often be like, oh, I just can't get past this thing.
Yeah.
So even just little things like one of my clients who's got a very similar bent to me went to the Kuyaksha, the city hall, and she just couldn't get the foot. She didn't know what to, she would just get frustrated and start crying and then leave. So I was like, okay, here's what's going to happen. Oh, but this is me as well. So if you're not that kind of, if you're like, I've learned how to do things here. I know that the city hall will do exactly whatever you want. They're so caring and kind. But if you don't get past that first, like, you've got to keep staying there, and they'll try and facilitate whatever you want to do. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. So one of my clients went, and we cleared Laura's schedule. We had a call before she went. So my client used some of that time to use some of her coaching time with me and some of the time with Laura to have a half an hour call to set her up to go to the Kuyak show. And then we were on standby. If anything happened. And she did. She called Laura, and she got Laura on the phone to the person in the Kuyak show. She spoke to her. So like just these kinds of things. So I'm never going to berate somebody for not being able to do grown-up things. It's like, let's have a look at your Lumina profile, your psychometric profile. Ooh, not so much of that data-driven kind of down-to-earth, spreadsheety, get things done thing. Lots and lots of that inspiration energy. You're going to really find it hard to get the right form and then fill it in. You need help from somebody like Laura, who has loads of blue energy. So this is how I work, is like with the whole person as an holistic being in part of the systems that I can see. And then on the other side of things are the people who don't like to lose or fail or be wrong or things like that. So that's a different story altogether, is kind of managing that. So, you've got the two things. It's not going to be like, well, you need to learn how to fail. No, it's like, how can you manage your nervous system around that? Plus, how is that useful? Plus, how can I help you? Plus, if it comes to visioning time, I can hold you, planning time, when you've got to look at the vision and you just keep criticizing what's the first thing that you've thought of. I can hold you accountable for kind of opening up just 1% more, so that killer ideal is allowed to come in, or 2 or 3, and then we can evaluate those at evaluation time. So always thinking about what what people's processes are, because at the end of the day, we are grown-ups and we do need to deliver on our stuff. And we, in your words, we do need to complete our tasks, but we also do need to have a vision and stay with that for the longest time we need to be able to get it out, and so on. So that's what's on the cards for me next year, is really getting that out and letting that unfold. So that, and that's probably, if anybody's interested in finding out more, you're more than welcome to get in touch with me, and I will send you a set of questions and see whether if the next conversation happens. Because these days, Helen, I'm working on an invitation recommendation and model, rather than a kind of like just anybody can have a free 30-minute call with me, which has been what I've I've been doing so far, which is fine and very nice, but I'm trying to, I think that's a brilliant way to do things as well. But right now, because of the things that I want to bring into the world, and I feel like the people that I want to bring with me should be by invitation, recommendation. And again, nothing elitist about that. It's just where I am in my business and my journey. And it might change again next year, who knows? Because there needs to be more accessible things out there as well for, because I just think coaching is so fantastic. I want to find a way as well with this group of kind of people that I'm going to be working with, is like, how can I make my coaching accessible to people in all kind of income brackets without, while at the same time ensuring the right people are in the room.
Exactly.
Well, you say exactly, what do you mean?
Well, when you said making sure the right people are in the room,
yeah,
I totally agree with that, because you know what you and I do, we're here to support people. We're here to support people in, you know, being the best, being happy, and, you know, making a great contribution in the world.
Yes.
And right, that's what we want to do. And if we are spending time with some people who are not really serious about it, they're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And like you say, I don't want to sound elitist or anything like that.
No.
It's a waste of our time, because we could be using our time to support people who are really more serious about it. And those people,
or I could just be sitting having a cup of tea and looking out the window.
Exactly. Also very, very important. Phase 1 of the success cycle, care for you first. Right. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. Let's bring this to a close. It's been absolutely beautiful. We could probably go on for about 5 hours. It's been so wonderful. We'll link to the link in the show notes for everyone who wants to contact Sarah. I do really, really strongly recommend that you go and at least look at her Instagram, send her some messages, send some thank yous for what's been inspiring for you today. Actually, you said it at the beginning before we started the recording, Sarah. I don't know if, you know, inspire might be too lofty. I think you've totally inspired our listeners and viewers today. It's been absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen, for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
All right. There we go then.